ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते. So, welcome to our Saturday morning session. Today, before we start from verse number 25 of chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita, I'll briefly cover a little bit more on the question which Tarun had asked last time, that do we have any role at all, or do we just behave like puppets? I had given this example of puppets in one of the explanations, and I thought it is worth some further explanation. Now, if we look at our life, we are born without our consent. We don't know whether we get our birth, who decides that, where we should be born, that is also beyond our control. Who will be our parents, whether they would be rich or they will be poor, whether they will be beggars or whether they will be living in palaces. It is all beyond our control. It is decided somewhere else. And as we know, almost 60-70% of our life is decided on the basis of the birth, because then it is already decided what will be the language, what will be your religion, what will be your customs and traditions, what will be your food habits. By and large, I'm not saying very specifically, there are exceptions, but by and large. Then, do we control or do we manage our breath, or it happens automatically? It just continues, it's controlled by somebody else. We keep breathing in and breathing out. If we stop the breath, then we have to make an effort. Otherwise, no effort is needed. It happens automatically. We feel hungry. Do we make it feel, or it happens automatically? I think this all happens automatically. And then once we eat the food, who is digesting that food? Do we make an effort to digest? It is automatically getting digested, getting converted into blood, flesh, bones, all kinds of, element that constitute our body. Then do we make an effort to sleep, or the sleep comes on its own? That also comes on its own. Even the stool and urine, you are prompted from inside that, okay, you need to do this. So if we look at most of the activities of our life, they are governed automatically by some unknown force. Some are governed by nature, that is the what we call prakriti, the forces of prakriti. But some are governed by the forces of consciousness, or the propulsion of consciousness. Then even if we look at our aging process, from childhood, we grow into teenager, then we become young, youth comes, then the slowly we become old, and then the death sets in, decay sets in. All that, do we control any of it? We do not. So all the most important happenings of our life are controlled by a force which is unknown to us, or even if it is known to us, not known properly. So we are not the controller of our life. Yes, it does not mean that we do not have any control at all. So do not take it in that sense as well, because what we do in life, a large number of decisions on day-to-day basis are within our control, and that is where we exercise our discretion. And that discretion impacts our current life, and some of them may impact our future lives. So I think that it is a mix, but the role of human being is very, very limited in the entire process. Because even the thinking process of the current life is considerably governed by the tendencies which we inherit from our past lives. And those tendencies are influenced by our decisions in the current life, and then they become the software of our next life. So, this is how the process works. So, to conclude, I would say that most of the important activities of life are beyond our control. But we do have some control over some of our decisions, which can impact our current life as well as the lives in the future. So I think this is where I would stop on that issue. And now we will start from verse number 25. Now, verse number 25 is very important because we have seen in Mandukya Upanishad, verse number 6, and this is practically going on the same logic. So this is extremely, I would say, a fundamental verse of the unknown force in life. It says, ये आत्मा अव्यक्त, ये आत्मा अव्यक्त है. अव्यक्त का मतलब, we'll explain that further. ये आत्मा अचिंत्य है. अचिंत्य means मन का विषय नहीं है. ये आत्मा विकार रहित है और न बदलने वाला है. This is what it says. अचिंत्य, अव्यक्त and avikar. And if we go back to our session on Mandukya, it explains it further actually. न अंतःप्रज्ञ न बहिष्प्रज्ञ, अदृष्टम अव्यवहार्यम अग्राह्यम अलक्षणम. Actually, this particular verse in Bhagavad Gita is reflecting the same sense as reflected in Mandukya Upanishad, verse number 6. That this particular force of human body or human constitution, which we have been discussing in the last, say, verse number 11 to 24, that force is avyakt. Avyakt means it is not manifest, and therefore the sense organs cannot grasp it. It cannot be heard, it cannot be smelt, it cannot be seen, it cannot be touched, or it cannot be tasted. So that is the meaning of avyakt. It is beyond the perception by our senses. That is one part. It is beyond achintya, that is, it is beyond the thought process of mind. Mind cannot think about it. Anything which we have not seen, about which we have not heard, about which we have not, felt something, then you cannot conceive about it in your mind as well. So it is not the subject of mind, it is not the subject of senses. Then avikar, there is no, change of any nature in that. It is constant, it is eternal. That is what it says. And this was the meaning in Mandukya, verse number 6. So here Krishna briefly tells us that whatever we have discussed about the Atma, whether, in different verses from verse number 11 to 24, this cannot be a subject of, our sense organs. When we think about sense organs, we always talk about subject and object. Object is the one which is perceived by senses. Like I have this glass here, glass of water. Now I can see it and I can make a sense out of it, because this is an object and my eyes are perceiving it. So eyes are an instrument, and then the knowledge through the eye and brain goes into myself, and then I make a sense out of it. So there is a subject, there is a process of learning, and there is an object. In Sanskrit, it is called Gyata, Gyan, and Ge. Gyata, Gyan, and Ge. Ge is more like an object. Gyan is the process, and Gyata is the person who is learning. So we do not pass through these three stages in case of Atma. Atma cannot be seen outside, cannot be heard outside, and therefore it is not an object. This is what Krishna says. It cannot be thought by the mind, and it obviously cannot, it is not subject to any change or any alteration at any stage. So I think this we had discussed in great detail when we were talking about Mandukya. So basically this is what it means here. So he is now concluding this what we call Atmagyan. जो आत्मज्ञान वर्ष नंबर 11 से चालू हुआ था, उसको now is trying to conclude in these verses. Then the verse number 26, this is the verse number 26 is in the context of the worldly understanding. So he is presuming that even if Arjuna is talking in the worldly sense, even then I should be able to explain to him what it means. So this is the verse number 26 is based on that. यदि तू इसको सदा जन्मने और सदा मरने वाला भी माने, तो भी हे अर्जुन इस प्रकार शोक करना तेरे लिए योग्य नहीं है. फिर वर्स 27, क्योंकि ऐसा होने से न तो जन्मने वाले की निश्चित मृत्यु और मरने वाले का निश्चित जन्म सिद्ध होता है. देखिए, इसको मैं दोबारा पढ़ता हूं, मैं थोड़ा गलत पढ़ गया. क्योंकि ऐसा होने से तो जन्म होने वाले की निश्चित मृत्यु और मरने वाले का निश्चित जन्म सिद्ध होता है, इसलिए इस बारे में तुझे शोक नहीं करना चाहिए. Now this is a very profound statement. It's the most scientific statement which we can understand with science. Now, an existence cannot become non-existence. Even a smallest particle of sand cannot be thrown out of existence. It cannot be destroyed in that sense. It can be transformed, but it cannot go out of existence. It has to remain in existence. Similarly, something which is not in existence cannot be brought into existence. So the existence and non-existence, at some stage, they are mutually exclusive. Existence cannot be converted into non-existence, and non-existence cannot be brought into existence. This is a fundamental truth which the science has also acknowledged today. No scientific laboratory can create on its own a drop of water or a particle of sand. It's impossible. They can convert certain things and create water out of it, and they can mix certain things and create a particle of dust out of it, but they cannot create from nothing a particle of dust. Similarly, a particle of dust cannot be reduced to nothing. It is not possible. So this is a science which is a foundational science, that existence cannot go out of existence and non-existence cannot come into existence. This is how it is. Whatever remains here, it keeps transforming. That is why he is telling to Arjuna कि अगर ये कहते हो तुम कि जिसका जन्म हुआ है उसकी मृत्यु हो रही है, तो ये भी निश्चित है कि उसका फिर से जन्म होगा. जिसकी मृत्यु हुई है उसका जन्म फिर से होगा, और जिसका जन्म हुआ उसकी मृत्यु होगी. अगर इस सच्चाई को तुम मानते हो, तो भी तुम्हें शोक करना उपयुक्त नहीं है, क्योंकि जिसकी मृत्यु हो रही उसका जन्म तो होगा ही होगा। अगर भीष्म पितामह और द्रोणाचार्य की मृत्यु अगर हो रही है तो उनका जन्म होगा, फिर शोक करने की क्या चिंता है? क्यों उस रास्ते पे तुम जा रहे हो? तो Lord Krishna is explaining in this verse that even if you do not understand the profound nature of Atmagyan, of the soul, that it is eternal, it is indestructible, it is, beyond aging, all that, even if you don't understand that, and you feel that Atma is taking birth and it is dying, and then even in that case, that person who is dying today has to take rebirth, because nothing can be completely eliminated and driven into non-existence. That is not possible. So this is what he is telling here, and therefore in the verse number 28 he says कि ये भीष्मादिकों के शरीर मायामय होने से अनित्य हैं और इससे शरीरों के लिए शोक करना उचित नहीं है। एंड देन ही गोज बैक, क्योंकि हे अर्जुन, संपूर्ण प्राणी जन्म से पहले बिना शरीर वाले थे, मरने के बाद बिना शरीर वाले होंगे, सिर्फ मध्य में शरीर वाले होते हैं। नाउ वी डिस्कस दिस थिंग अर्लियर, दैट इन द बिगिनिंग that a particular thing doesn't exist, at the end it doesn't exist, it exists only in the middle. It means it is based on borrowed existence. The existence is not its own, it's a borrowed existence. We took an example of hot potato. Now the heat into the potato is a borrowed heat, and therefore if you leave the potato outside for a while, the borrowed heat will disappear and potato will exist on its own. But it is not true for the fire itself. The fire has its intrinsic quality of heat. So if there's a fire, the heat has to be there. Without heat, there's no fire. So there's a difference between the intrinsic quality and a borrowed quality. So if an existence is there only in the middle, it was not there in the beginning, it was not there at the end, in the middle it is there, it means it is a borrowed existence. And that is why he has called it Maya. Because all the things which are made up of borrowed existence, they are basically Maya. They are not intrinsically existing in this world. This is what he wants to say. Now let us be a little more clear on this particular issue, because it's very important. Now I have this laptop. This laptop was not there earlier. Then it came into existence. And after some years, this will be not in existence. It will go out of, it will be destroyed and it will be converted into something else. So this is a borrowed existence. You put together certain material, it came into existence, it took a shape, it took a name, and then that will disappear. Same thing happens with the human body. This body was not in existence before. And then this body came into existence. At my death, this body will disappear. And then obviously this body existed for a short period of time in the middle. So it is a borrowed existence. I borrowed it from here and there, put it together, and then it disappears. So most of the things, actually all the things which are manifest, not most, all the things which are manifest in this universe, they all have borrowed existence. That is why sansar ko maya कहते हैं. You take anything, you take a plant for example, or you take a tree, or you take a tractor, and you analyze them. You will find they did not exist before, they will not exist after a while. In the middle they are existing, and that manifestation is a borrowed manifestation. This is what this verse is saying here. The issue is very clear. This is the impact of Maya. This is not the original quality of that existence. And that is the difference we have to understand, the original quality of the existence and Maya. Now, even if we take fire, we are saying, for an example, Fire has an intrinsic quality of heat. But fire itself did not originate on its own. It also had a borrowed existence from air. And air has borrowed existence from space, from Akash. It is the sequence of appearance of these five, what we call Panchbhut. The first Akash, then air, then fire, and then water, and then earth. Even today's science also accepts that at some stage the earth was a ball of fire, then it froze and converted into ice age, and then the earth came into being. So the three stages are accepted even by the modern science. But this is a five-stage process. So even if we go to Akash, Akash also doesn't have its original existence. Its existence comes from somewhere else. So a backward journey into existence will lead you to Avyakt, will lead you to something which we call by different names: consciousness, Avyakt, Atma, Paramatma. But it will lead you to a space where you cannot explain how it originated. And that is the point which was made in the previous verse, that it is not a subject of mind, it is not a subject of senses, and therefore we cannot understand it. So these are the riddles of our existence. We have to differentiate between borrowed existence and the real intrinsic quality. Once we are able to reach there, then the riddle of our existence clears up very clearly. Then it becomes crystal clear who we are and what we are. Then the difference between body and the Avyakt, body and the soul, becomes very clear. And the verse number 27 will explain it further. We'll go there now. 28 actually. 29. हे अर्जुन, ये आत्म तत्व बड़ा गहन है, इसलिए कोई महापुरुष ही इस आत्मा को आश्चर्य की तरह से देखता है, कोई महापुरुष को उसको आश्चर्य की तरह से सुनता है, कोई उसके तत्व को आश्चर्य की तरह से जान पाता है, और बहुत से लोग सुन के जान के फिर भी नहीं समझ पाते हैं. Now this is a very, very profound statement, and I think we need to understand it very properly. So I have some examples to explain this first. When we look at any object in this world, we try to understand that object with our senses. Then it goes into our mind and brain. Then we find an explanation what it is. It is based on subject-object relationship, in which the process, the instrument of our mind and senses work, and they help us. In that process, we understand the entire world. Do we know anything which we do not understand like this? Everything is understood which exists in this world only in this way. Our sense organs perceive it, our mind and our intellect analyze it, and then we understand what this object is. This is the normal process of understanding the world. Now let us take an example of a dark place, a very, very dark place. There's total darkness there, and you go there. Now there are a lot of things lying there, but you can't see any one of them. So you will say there's nothing, you cannot analyze any of the objects. Maybe there's a toy lying there, there's a laptop lying there, maybe there is some showpieces lying there. A variety of things are lying there, but since there's a total darkness, you cannot see. Like when there's a total darkness outside and you go out, you do not see the buildings, you do not see the trees, you do not see the river, you do not see mountains, nothing is visible because there is a darkness. Now, as soon as the light comes, you are able to see and you describe them properly. But in that darkness, can you see something? Can you identify something? In that total darkness also, there is one thing which you always identify, that is your own self. Your own existence is never in doubt that I am there. Everything else may or may not exist in that darkness because you have not seen them. And therefore you cannot be sure about anything else, but you are always certain about your own existence, even if it is the darkest of the dark place. So, why are you sure about your own existence? Because the avyakt inside, the soul inside, can be felt by itself. It cannot be perceived by sense organs or cannot be thought by mind. It can only be felt by itself. And that is why in a completely dark place, you can feel yourself. You are never in doubt that my existence is not in doubt at all. I'm there. I feel it. Why? Because this avyakt, which is hidden in ourselves, it can be felt by itself. There's nothing else in this world which can be felt by itself. If you ask this glass of water, it cannot feel itself. Even if you ask any object which you see, it cannot feel itself, except the avyakt, except we may call it consciousness, we may call it awareness, we may call it Atma. That is the only thing which can be felt by itself. And it cannot be felt by sense organs and mind. So this is the difference. Everything which you see around the world, everything which is existing in the manifest form, is an object of senses and mind. Everything which is not manifest, which is not, cannot be seen, that is not an object of anything else. So there is an existence and there is non-existence from the point of view of our sense organs. There is a manifest world, there is non-manifest world. The manifest world is the subject of mind and senses. The non-manifest world is not the subject of mind and senses. They are mutually exclusive. But there is a third one which comes into play, which is your own self, which is neither the subject of non-manifest nor the subject of manifest. It is the subject which manifests itself to itself. I think this is a very deep point which has been explained in this verse. That कोई आदमी इसको आश्चर्य की तरह से देखता है, because you cannot see it, still you are trying to see it. तो आश्चर्य है ना. You cannot hear it, still you are trying to hear it. You cannot describe it in language, but still you are trying to describe it. So all these are something which are unusual things which we are doing to understand this existence, which is called avyakt, which is called Atma, which is called Paramatma, which is called consciousness, which is called awareness, whatever name you give. So this is a subject of great wonder, great astonishment, because we are trying to see it while fully knowing that you cannot see it. We are trying to hear it while fully knowing we cannot hear it. We are trying to understand it with our intellect and mind, fully knowing we cannot understand it. Still we are trying to understand it. So that is why it is a wonder. And this wonder is very important, because in spirituality, it is called a language of paradox. The language of paradox basically means that certain things which you cannot explain in language, you try to still explain that by using the language of paradox. Like in Upanishad also, that will come in Bhagavad Gita as well further down, that Avyakt is smallest of the smallest, it is biggest of the biggest. Now this is a language of paradox, that it is the smallest of the smallest, still biggest of the biggest. How can it be like that? It doesn't look very logical to our brain and mind, but it is so. Similarly, it says it exists inside and it exists outside. Now, that also looks very, illogical to our mind, but it is so. So we use the language of paradox to explain what is called inexplicable. The inexplicable, which is not the subject of our sense organs and mind, has to be explained, but while knowing that it cannot be explained. So that is the paradox, and that is where it is the subject of wonder. So all those people who try to explain, Avyakt or Atma or Paramatma, they find themselves in a very difficult situation, because the thing which you cannot, which doesn't have a color, which doesn't have an attribute, which doesn't have a shape, which doesn't have any relationship with anything, how you describe it? You cannot. Still, that is what Mandukya also said, that iski satta hi apne aap mein iska existence ka proof hai. Similarly here, the proof of existence is that you can be anywhere in any circumstance, you will feel that you are present, that cannot go out of existence. As long as you are alive, you will feel your presence. And that is the crux of, proving the existence of the Avyakt. इसकी सत्ता ही है, इसका एग्जिस्टेंस है, इसकी सत्ता ही इसका प्रूफ है. Because we can see everything else outside. If we don't see, there's no proof. You see a person committing murder, you say, yes, I saw it. If you do not see it, you say, I don't see it. It didn't happen from your point of view. But you cannot say that about yourself, that I was present there, I was not present there. You are present all the time in yourself. In yourself, you are all the time present wherever you are. There's no doubt about it. And this realization brings us to the fact that the Avyakt, the Atma, is a wonder because it can be felt by itself. Its existence can be felt by itself, by nothing else. There's no subject-object relationship here. So this is a very important point. I think we have to understand it very clearly. Now, there's one more point here which we need to clarify. It is also linked with the earlier verse that अगर आपका मृत्यु होती है तो जन्म निश्चित है. Now we have this riddle in the world all the time, that somebody is born as talented, somebody is born in rich family, somebody is born in poor family, somebody was born with his disabled body, somebody was born with a fantastic body. Why it is so? So what is the explanation? Is the God really cruel, that he does cruelty for somebody and he is generous to somebody else? Is it so? No, the explanation for this, and the correct explanation for this, is that it is based on your karmic balance. Your karma of the last time decides all this. So if the karma of the last time decides, it means there is something next life. It means there is something next life. You cannot rule out. In fact, all the religions of the world, even those religions who do not believe in rebirth, they also believe that there is a Swarg and there is a hell and heaven and there is Swarg and Narak. They also believe in that. So there is something after the life. that the people who do good, they go to the heaven, and the people who do bad, they go to the hell. So there's an afterlife. They all accept it. There's no religion which does not accept afterlife. So the karmic impact is there, but we go more profound in our scriptures, which says that this is a cyclical process which is visible everywhere. You can see cycle. You can see all the cycles in front of your eyes. A tree comes from a seed, it grows, then it becomes old, it produces a lot of seeds again, and it dissolves back to the 5 elements. Then the new seed comes, and then again a tree grows, and this seed and tree process continues forever. The same thing applies to the human existence. The seed and body process continues. The seed is formed, the body comes, and then again the body is destroyed. New seed is formed, the seed again fructifies, new body comes, and this process continues. And we believe that it continues forever till we attain moksha. So this is the explanation that everything has an after effect. Whatever we do, it has effect. And that effect is ultimately transported in the form of a seed to the next birth. And that is why Krishna said that, those who are dying, they have to take rebirth. That is why he says, जिन लोगों की मृत्यु है उनका जन्म लेना निश्चित है. इसीलिए तो निश्चित है कि वो उनका सीड जो है वो वापस रेक्टिफाई होके वापस आएगा. And therefore this existence which is there in the middle is nothing but Maya. So all these 3-4 verses which are here in this up to verse number 30th actually, till the last 30th is, हे अर्जुन, यह आत्मा सबके शरीर में सदा अवध्य है, इसलिए संपूर्ण भूत प्राणियों के लिए तू शोक करने के लिए योग्य नहीं है. So here he concludes that Atmagyan. Krishna started the highest explanation of our existence from verse number 11, and then he's concluding that here at verse number 30, telling that this is the most astonishing thing in the world, to understand the self. And that is why he has used the word कि कुछ लोग इसको बड़ी आश्चर्य से सुनते हैं, कई लोग आश्चर्य से देखते हैं, कई लोग आश्चर्य से समझते हैं, फिर भी समझने के बाद भी उनका आश्चर्य खत्म नहीं होता, आश्चर्य ही चलता रहता. It is because this is the only existence in the world which actually proves to itself. It is not proved by anybody else. It cannot be proved by anybody else. It has to prove to itself and through itself. And that is the crux of Atmagyan, that we have to not look for an evidence outside, whether the soul is existing or not. We can't, get a proof through sense organs, through mind, but our own existence is the proof for it, that even if you are in the darkest of the dark place, you can never forget about your own existence. That existence proves that you are there, and that means that Avyakt is proving itself by itself. There is no other proof needed for that. And this is, the most, what you call, astonishing part of Atma and its nature. So this is where we conclude the what you call most profound verses on Atmagyan in succession, one after another. He started saying that इसको जलाया नहीं जा सकता, इसको गीला नहीं किया जा सकता, इसको शस्त्र से काटा नहीं जा सकता. Then he said that जब आप बच्चे होते हैं, यंग होते हैं, ओल्ड होते हैं, फिर भी ये चलता रहता है. Constantly it is with you while your entire body is undergone change, but this stays unchanged inside you. Then he says this is only a garment for you. The body is only a garment. The soul is the constant which remains inside. And he used all variety of examples to explain the eternal, unalterable existence of Atma. And now he has come here to explain that this is not a subject of senses and mind. It can be felt and realized by itself, through itself. अपने आप से ही अपने को पता लगता है, और किसी चीज से पता नहीं लगता. And this is how he concludes the Atmagyan here. This is very, very, profound science of the sciences, I would call it. There's no science which can be deeper than this. Now he goes into a different, direction altogether. He goes into the direction of dharma. So here he says, और अपने धर्म को देख कर भी तू भय को करने के योग्य नहीं है. ये वर्स नंबर 31 है. क्योंकि धर्म युक्त युद्ध से बढ़कर दूसरा कोई कल्याणकारक कर्तव्य क्षत्रिय के लिए नहीं है. धर्म युक्त युद्ध से बढ़कर दूसरा कोई कल्याणकारक कर्तव्य क्षत्रिय के लिए नहीं है. हे पार्थ, अपने आप प्राप्त हुए और खुले हुए स्वर्ग के द्वार रूप इस प्रकार के युद्ध को भाग्यवान क्षत्रिय लोग ही पाते हैं. This kind of opportunity comes only to those who are very, very lucky in life, that you have got this opportunity. We'll go and explain all these verses one by one. But let me read it, because they have one consistent meaning, all of them. और यदि तू इस धर्म युद्ध संग्राम को नहीं करेगा तो स्वधर्म और कीर्ति को खोकर पाप को प्राप्त होगा, और सब लोग तेरी बहुत काल तक रहने वाली अपकीर्ति का भी कथन करेंगे, और वह अपकीर्ति माननीय पुरुषों के लिए मरण से भी अधिक बुरी होती है. So these are verses 31 to 34. Now here he is not talking about Atmagyan. He is talking about the Sansarik Gyan. He is talking what happens in the real world here outside. So he says that in the real world, what are important? The important things is what should ethics, morality, what should be done, what should not be done. All that is relevant in the real world. What we call dharma, what should be done and what should not be done, what is worth doing, what is not worth doing. All that is a riddle of dharma. Now, when you go into the realm of Atmagyan, dharma and adharma have no meaning at all. Niti and Niti has no meaning. Moral immorality has no meaning, because Atmagyan is beyond all that. Once you reach in the realm of Atmagyan, there is no morality, no immorality, no dharmic, no adharmic, nothing. But in the real world, in the world in which we live, dharma is important, what should be done, what should not be done. So he is explaining here that for Kshatriya. Now, I don't want to go into the four caste explanations right now. We will go into those later on when another verse describing all four of them or four of them will come. But basically, the humanity has been broadly divided into four categories. One category, which is the intellectual, category, which we call Brahman. Second, the category which is bodily, strength and courage. That is the category of Kshatriya. The category which wants to earn a lot of money and become prosperous. That is the category of Lakshmi. That is what we call the class of traders and farmers, all the industrialists, that is that class, and the rest of the category which provides remaining services. This kind of division exists in all societies. It exists in all humanities, but we'll discuss that separately. So here he says that the duty of Kshatriya is to fight for a war which is being fought for, destroying the evil forces. And if you are getting this opportunity to destroy evil forces, which are led by Duryodhana in this case, then you are getting a great opportunity to go to the heaven. Heaven, the route of the heaven is open to you. Even if you win the war, you will, enjoy the earth. If you lose the war and if you are killed, you will go to the heaven. So in both the cases, you are the winner. So he is explaining this to Arjuna, coming down to his level. So far he was talking on a very higher plane, but now he is coming to his level, that if you think as a Kshatriya, what is your duty, even then you have to perform this duty, you have to fight this war, because this war is to destroy the evil forces led by Duryodhana. So this is what he is saying, and if you do not do at this time, then people will think that you are kaya, that you are, coward. You deserted the place, and people will talk about you ignominiously for years and years and centuries to come. Because either you fight the war, or you fight the war, you win the war, or you fight the war, you get killed. That is fine. But if you run away from the war, people will give you what we call, apkirti, that you, all the time they keep talking ill of you for generations and generations. So it is not worth doing for you, Arjuna. This is not correct. Even if you look at this from the point of view of Kshatriya, what you need to do is to fight this war. This is what Arjuna is telling him. Then verse number 35. और जिनके तू बहुत माननीय होकर भी अब तुच्छता को प्राप्त होगा, वे महारथी लोग तुझे भय के कारण युद्ध से उपराम हुआ मानेंगे. Even those people to whom you are telling that I don't want to kill them and I have mercy for them, you are giving them a sort of, reprieve. Even those people will feel that you ran away from the war because you were darpok, you were completely coward, you didn't know how to fight. And that kind of feeling will be left behind by you. So don't run away from the war. और ऐसे वैरी लोग तेरे सामर्थ्य की निंदा करते हुए बहुत से न कहने योग्य वचनों को कहेंगे, उससे ज्यादा दुख क्या होगा तेरे को. इसलिए इससे युद्ध करना तेरे लिए सब प्रकार से अच्छा है, क्योंकि या तो मर कर स्वर्ग को प्राप्त होगा अथवा जीत कर पृथ्वी को भोगेगा. इसलिए हे अर्जुन, युद्ध के लिए खड़ा हो. So this is what his whole effort of Krishna's whole effort is to persuade Arjuna to come and fight this war, and he is explaining it in two different dimensions. The first dimension was the highest spiritual dimension, the Atma Tattva. And now he felt, he must have seen his face when he was explaining, that he is not able to understand that Atma Tattva which was explained in those verses. He comes down to his level of the world, and he tells him that even as Kshatriya, even as ordinary fighter, you should fight this war, because if you win this war, you will enjoy the earth. If you get killed in the war, you will go to the heaven. So there's nothing to worry about. And if you run away from the war, then people will talk ill of you for centuries to come. And what would be the worse than that? So this is what he is explaining to him. But this is not the spiritual message. This is the message at the level of Arjuna. And he is telling him in terms of dharma and adharma. Now, here I think we need to understand this a little clearly. Whether dharma and adharma is part of spirituality, or is spirituality different from dharma and adharma? You see, once you have transcended the limits of praise and criticism, whether people are praising you or people are criticizing you, and whether you are going to reap good harvest out of it or bad harvest, you have no interest in the outcome of that effort, then you transcend the limit of dharma. Then nothing is dharma for you, nothing is adharma for you. That is what we call going beyond, like when you go beyond the the gravitational force of the earth, then you are gone into that vast universe and nothing affects you. You are all the time, swimming there all the time. Nothing affects you. The same logic applies to a person who has transcended these limits of the world, how the world is perceived by us. If you cross those limits and you go to the spiritual direction, if you spiritual realm, then dharma, adharma, morality, immorality, ethics, all that becomes irrelevant. They have no meaning at all. This meaning of dharma, morality, ethics is only in our conduct in this world. We behave as per the rules established in this world. यहाँ की क्या नीतियां हैं, क्या एक्सेप्टेबल है, क्या नहीं है, क्या कस्टम्स हैं, क्या सोसाइटी के ट्रेडिशंस हैं, उन चीज़ों को अगर हम देखेंगे तो देन वी आर इन दिस वर्ल्ड, वी आर इवेल्युएटिंग आवरसेल्व्स अकॉर्डिंग टू द स्टैंडर्ड्स ऑफ दिस वर्ल्ड. So that is the difference between the realm of spirituality and the realm of dharma. The dharma applies to the world. The dharma applies to our day-to-day lives here. The dharma applies what should be the duty of a son to his father, or a brother to his brother, and a son to his mother, or a mother's duty to his son, and the duty towards society, duty towards your neighbor. All these questions arise only when you are talking in terms of worldly language. But those people who have risen beyond that world, those people who have gone to a different plane altogether, then this does not apply. Let's take another example. When you go into a bus, travel in a bus on the streets, then you pass through different set of rules. There's a street here, there's a street there. You turn right, you turn left, and there's a traffic light here, there's traffic light not there, there's no entry here, there's entry there, don't turn left, don't turn right. All these rules apply to you when you are traveling on a bus on the surface, on the earth. But when you go higher up in the plane and you start flying, then these rules become irrelevant for you. If you don't want to get down back to the earth, no rule applies. You can keep flying all the time. There's no rule at all. But if you want to get down again to the earth, then rule apply. When you get out of the earth, what you call in the flying route, then the rules apply. So when you are what you call boarding, the rules apply. And when you are taking off, the rules apply. When you are landing, the rules apply. But when you are all the time constantly in the air, the rules don't apply. Because there are no rules there. You can say there are rules, other planes and all those things come. You can say, for the sake of argument. But fundamentally, there are no rules there. And that is the comparison of a spiritual realm where there are no rules, because in that realm, you consider everybody like yourself. There's no difference between you and anybody else. Atmavat sarvbhutesu ye paschati sa pandita. The person who looks everybody else like himself, then there's no scope for any rule. Then, everybody's like you are treating everybody like your own self. So that is the difference between the spiritual realm and the worldly realm. And here Krishna, in the last few verses, verse number 31 to 37, he comes down to the realm of Arjuna and tells him in terms of dharma what is good for him to do and what is not good for him to do. And here also he tells him that even in the context of dharma, fighting the war and killing or destroying the injustice or unjust people is your duty. And that is where he ends at verse number 37. We will continue on that further, but I would like to conclude today here. And if you have any questions, I'll try my best to answer.